In the heart of our great nation, where the strength of our communities is built upon the foundation of strong and loving families, an urgent crisis is unfolding. Child Protective Services, CPS, an institution designed to safeguard our most vulnerable, has in many cases betrayed its noble mission. Too often, families are torn apart not by neglect or abuse, but by systemic failures and corruption. We can no longer stand idly by as these injustices continue. We are here to give a voice to those who have been isolated, to shine a light on the corruption, and to rally our fellow citizens in this critical fight for justice. Every day, countless families are caught in a web of bureaucracy and abuse of power, their lives disrupted and their bonds shattered. Children, who should be nurtured and protected, are instead placed in situations that can be just as, if not more, harmful than the circumstances from which they were taken. Parents, often bewildered and powerless, face insurmountable odds as they fight to reunite with their children. This is not the America we believe in. We cannot allow these injustices to persist. Our mission is to educate, to inform, and to inspire action. We promise to bring you daily updates on CPS, exposing the truth and fighting for reform. We must remember that the future of our nation depends on the strength and unity of our families. By standing together, we can hold CPS accountable and ensure that it fulfills its true purpose, protecting children and preserving families. This is a fight we must not and will not lose. We are committed to saving our families and securing a brighter future for all. The road ahead is challenging, but with your support, we can make a difference. Together, we will bring hope to those who have lost it and ensure that justice prevails. Let us unite with unwavering resolve and a sense of patriotic duty to safeguard the integrity of our families and the future of our nation.
In a small town under a faded sky lives a woman with a heart so wide. She fights for the lost, the set aside, against a system where shadows hide. She's seen the pain in a child's eyes. Tears fall down unanswered cries. With every case she stands so strong, turning pages, righting all the wrongs. Turn the page, let the truth be told. Shine a light on secrets dark and bold. For the families torn, the children mourn. Turn the page, let their voices mourn. Calls in the dead of night, holds the hands of those who fight, stands tall against the fear and shame. In her heart burns a righteous flame. She'll expose the lies, the hidden schemes, chasing justice in their dreams. For every child
You are watching Turn the Page with Kim Page. Before we get started, we have had an eventful few hours in the past few hours with plane crash in the Potomac, and apparently there may actually have been another plane crash. So I think that a moment of silence for the victims would be good if everybody would join me in a moment of silence before we get started. Prayers to all the families out there of the victims. So, tonight we are going to do something just a little bit different. I know that normally I have parents who have been victimized by Child Protective Services as my guests. Tonight I have a guest who actually is a foster parent, an adoptive parent. The reason I am bringing her on tonight is because many of you have heard me say that the parents are not the only victims of Child Protective Services, that the children are not the only victims of Child Protective Services, that oftentimes the fosters are also victimized by these horrible people, this heinous business. They're lied to by the caseworkers, told that parents did these horrible things to the children when they never did. These things never happened. They're told that we're going to let you adopt this child, and the foster parents develop a relationship with them, and then the child's jerked out from under them just like the child is from their biological parent. So tonight I would like to bring on a woman who actually she fights CPS in just a little bit of a different way from how we fight CPS. She fights CPS because she wants them to stop abusing children, but she does it from the perspective of being a foster parent. So I'm going to bring her on and let her talk a little bit about her story, but I am going to ask that you have respect for her. I understand this is a very touchy subject for everybody. I understand that if your children have been removed, whether you've got them back or have not, that this is going to be triggering for you. But I think that this would be very good for everybody to be able to hear the perspective of somebody else who's also victimized by Child Protective Services. If you have anything negative to say, I'm going to ask that you either don't say it or you're going to have to be removed from the chat. So with that being said, we can go ahead and bring on Senna. Excuse me, Nana.
I'm doing good.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, as you heard, I told people that you and your husband have also been victimized by Child Protective Services. Can you tell my audience why you do what you do as an advocate?
So we were foster parents, and we saw the good and the bad and the ugly. The reason why we're standing up now is because the bad is really bad. It's not just the biological parents that get the backlash. We get it too as foster parents. I've had them threaten to remove children from my home if I speak out. I mean, we're not here, and I know a lot of parents think that we're here to steal your children, and we're not. We're here to help.
So when you say you're here to help, what kind of relationship does CPS attempt to develop with you at the beginning of your contact with them as a foster parent?
Whenever we first become foster parents, they treated us like we were gold. Whenever they would bring children into our home, we would get what information they wanted to share with us. And usually it was only the bad stuff. It was never anything good. I have had several children come in our home that we have formed bonds with the biological family and the parents particularly. I have one that we include in ball games and everything else, and CPS and DSS does not like that we have a bond with them. They want to cut that off immediately, and that's not what we're trying to do. Sorry, I have one client on.
What did Nope, that's okay. That's okay. What did CPS, when you first became involved with CPS as a foster parent, what expectations did they set for you as a
We were to be quiet, raise the children, and find out any information from the children that they would provide, but not ask questions. They wanted to know anything that they shared with us. If a child had aggressive tendencies, they wanted to know about it. And a lot of it is just kids being kids. Kids are going to get hurt. Kids are going to fall down, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad parent because your child falls and gets hurt, or because your child's sick. That doesn't make you a bad parent. And a lot of times CPS is looking at that and they think you are.
The caseworkers that you've worked with, about what age range have they been?
Social workers have been anywhere from early 20s to, I'd say, late 40s, early 50s. And usually the newer ones that are in their early 20s are the ones that we had the most problems with.
And most of them, did they have children?
No.
So we're talking about people who are still children themselves, who have no children, are judging you as a parent.
Yeah, fresh out of school, don't have any kids, and want to tell you how to be a parent. And I'm one of the older foster parents. I don't mind sharing my age. I'm 47 years old, and I have a 22-year-old biological daughter. And you can't tell me anything that I wouldn't already know.
Well, Santa, I can tell you, you don't look 47. So I guess maybe the stress has done a lot of good for your skin, at least. So Santa, you told me earlier that you've been lied to by CPS. Can you tell me some of the things that they've lied to you about?
So we were told in one situation, we were told that a child needed to be moved because she had hit 2 children in my home. And we have since then adopted her brother, and we want to adopt her. Biological parents wanted to relinquish their rights to us because they feel like that she needs to be with her brother, and that they feel like this is the right home for her. DSS has told me that she would be returned, and now we're battling in court, and I've had to hire an attorney trying to fight. We were told that a child had been beaten. Come to find out, no, it wasn't that child. It was a sibling. They tell you what you want to know. As a foster parent, I feel like that they tell you what you want to know just so you form a bad opinion about the biological parents. And that's not what I'm here for. It's supposed to be about reunification. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what we're taught as foster parents. It's all about reunification. And that's not what DSS is about.
So your foster parent training is in direct contradiction to how the CPS workers actually handle the case.
Absolutely. I've even got a screenshot of one that says, I've got a way to block her from getting her children back. Which is not what I'm about. I'm not about keeping somebody's kids.
So let me ask you, and again, you don't have to answer any of the questions that I'm asking you. foster care, a lot of biological parents are under the impression that foster care is a very lucrative business. That as foster parents, you make a pretty penny for the children that you have. Can you kind of explain? And you don't have to tell me the exact
Oh, I
figures
don't mind.
if you don't want to. Can you go over kind of some of that with what kind of finances you get for caring for these children who are so badly abused?
So I can tell you in North Carolina, where I'm at, the monthly stipend that we get for foster kids is $704. And anybody
$704.
$704. Anybody
Okay.
that has a kid in daycare that has to work knows that that's not going to go very far. And plus clothing them, feeding them, everything else, because we don't get extra money for clothing. They don't send us clothes. They don't send us toys. They don't send us, I think one year I got one Christmas present per kid from DSS. We did everything else. So anybody that's got parents knows that that doesn't go very far. So we're not in it for the money.
Do you get food stamps for the children?
If they're under 5, we get WIC. If they're over 5, no.
Okay. So you get no kind of food help. Now, you said you get one present per child at Christmas. So are you aware of fundraising events that they have around Christmas to provide children with
Oh,
Christmas
I'm aware.
gifts?
And I'm aware that we even had a biker club that tried to donate over 30 brand new bikes to DSS in my county, and DSS refused them.
Wow. So these organizations that do provide toys to the children, if the kids are only getting one gift each, what's happening with the rest of the gifts?
Don't know. I know that a couple months ago it was stated that in just my county alone, there is 40 foster homes and 180 children in foster care.
180 children.
40 foster homes. And I can tell you that they even said that there was only 4 social workers.
So what I've just heard from you is that you get paid $25 a day to provide care for these children. Do you get a gas reimbursement for taking the kids to and from the doctor and to visits?
If we turn it in, then it's a couple cents per mile, I think. I never turned it in. Because everything that the kids that I had, I think the furthest I drove was probably 15 minutes. And that's not worth that to me. And plus, it's like pulling teeth to even get it.
So let me ask you, what kind of communication do you have with workers? So let's just say that you have little Bobby, and little Bobby gets off the school bus, and as he's stepping off the school bus, he falls and breaks his arm. Well, you've got to contact the caseworker to let them know that little Bobby's broke his arm and he needs to go for medical care. How does that communication work? Does the CPS worker, what is their response?
We have to let them know. If it is after hours, we have to get the CPS worker that's on call. They have to approve that we even get the child treated. And if it involves anything extensive, it has to go before another supervisor to get approval. So it's not an easy, hey, let's go in here, get a cast and be done. And then we're looked at where they may even file a report on us. I know that one of my kids that I've adopted went to an aunt for a couple months, and he fell and got hurt, and they removed him from the aunt.
Wow.
Now, I have a great relationship with aunt, so that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So when the children come into care, they're usually, you're told that they're abused in some
Correct.
way. What kind of services are you given access to help these children as far as psychological evaluations and therapy and things such
It
as
takes
that?
months for us to get in therapy. So they have only a few places that they'll refer us to. And unless you are already in there with a kid, with one of your kids, and can talk to the therapist and get the new children in, then you're going to wait months. And that means the biological parents are going to wait months, because until the kids get evaluated, DSS is not going to do anything. A sexual case goes, it'll take months to get that done. But as far as actual
So,
therapy, I've had one kid that waited 4 months before they actually started therapy.
wow, sounds like they really care about these kids. So you were told by CPS that you're not allowed to have any communication with the biological parents. Did they ever tell you what the ramifications would be if you did communicate with the biological parents?
I was told to, the only thing I've been told is to be careful about what I say and who I say it to, because it would risk, if any of the children in my home did come up for adoption, it would risk that adoption happening with us. Because it is actually up to the supervisors of DSS to approve your home for adoption. So if you make them mad, they can deny you.
So you've had a child for 12, 14, 18 months. They've adjusted to you. They've learned to love you and trust you after all the trauma they've been put through. And because you piss off the supervisor, you no longer can have this child, and they're ripped out of your home and traumatized again. Wow. Wow.
Now, mind you, all these people that have given me this information are no longer with our county. They've left. So something's got to be wrong.
Yeah.
So where's the issue? And if everything's going wrong and the director of DSS doesn't know about any of it, because every time I've emailed her about anything, I don't know about that situation. Well, you should.
So I wonder what the director's doing in all the time that she's getting paid taxpayer money to work. So are you ever allowed to see any of the records that CPS has in relation to the children?
The only time we are allowed to know anything that's in the record is if we are at court and we hear it in court. I'm not even allowed the records that CPS has on the children that I've adopted that are legally mine.
What about the children's medical histories? Are you allowed to have access to their medical history?
I get nothing.
And so you're allowed to have information as far as the children's previous doctors. Have you ever spoken to the doctors that they went to before they were removed from their biological parents?
Usually what they try to do is let us know where they've been going to the doctor, and then we are supposed to try to keep them at that doctor, which I have done. And they don't tell you much. I can give you, for instance, one of the kids that we adopted was born addicted to drugs, and we did not know that the hospital had called CPS 3 times before CPS ever stepped in. And I didn't know that till she was adopted and we read her file.
So you had no idea she was born addicted to drugs?
I knew that she was born addicted. I didn't know that it took 3 times of calling to get somebody to look at it. Now, any other time, if a kid falls, CPS is going to be knocking your door down. So it all depends on what CPS worker is there. Depends on what outcome you're going to get.
So let's talk about that. You said that you've had caseworkers anywhere from 20 to 40s. What have you noticed, or have you noticed any type of pattern with the workers as far as their um, proclivity to take certain children based on their age range or children from certain situations.
I can say this. My county is a small county. At some point, somebody's going to know somebody that knows somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a younger person that knows a lot of people and they know that Joe Blow's children are being looked at and they have a relationship with them, they may not step in. But if they don't know you from Adam, they're going to take your kids.
Wow. You said you've had a previous worker tell you a couple of things. Have you ever had any workers ever tell you about the bonuses or incentives that the workers themselves receive
No, I found out.
for taking children?
No, I found out that they.
Having them adopt.
No, I've never heard of any of that. I did find out that our social workers now have an incentive to where if you bring someone on and they hire them, they will pay you $500 as that social worker that you brought someone on. If that social worker that you brought in stays for a year, they pay you another $1,500. Well, I think that $2,000 could go elsewhere, don't you?
I do, but it kind of sounds like they're bribing people to steal children.
Oh, yes. And I know that there's been several social workers within the last couple months that haven't lasted but about 2 or 3 months because they can't stand the county. I've had social workers that are no longer with our county that have come to me since I've started speaking out and has told me our county is corrupt. They don't work together. They're not for the good of the children.
So we talked about the case records. Have you ever been able to see anything as far as the court records?
No. No, the only time we see anything the only time we ever hear anything is in court, and anything else we don't get anything unless it comes from a social worker that just wants to run off at the mouth.
So you said that you're allowed in court because there's certain hearings that in your county are open to the public.
All of our hearings are.
Are you only? All of the hearings.
All of our hearings are. The only time they close one is if they have a teenager that's going on the stand. That's the only time I've seen them close one. Every other CPS case is open.
Wow. And these children, are they, when the cases are heard, are the children's names and abbreviated? Do they say Sam Smith or do they say SS? Do they give them any kind of anonymity?
No, they say their first name, but you can figure it out because whenever they have called the case, they call the case by the parent's full name.
So they don't make sure that these children are put in a situation where they don't go to school the next day and have their classmates go, "Oh, you're in foster care," and start bullying them for it. Wow, that's crazy. You told me about a girl that you had in your care at one point. I think you said she was 13. And that CPS told you about a bunch of things that she and her siblings were physically abused.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So she's 13. Her sisters were, I think, 15 and 16 at the time. We were told that they were physically abused. They were in the Baptist Children's Home here because that was the only place they had them. Whenever she came to live with us, she claimed she didn't know why that they were taken. She didn't understand why she couldn't go home, that her parents had done nothing wrong, that her parents had never hit her, beat her, anything like that, and she just didn't understand why they couldn't go home.
Now, Was she allowed to have any type of relationship with her siblings while she was in foster care?
They had visits whenever they had visits with mom, which was once.
But they were not allowed sibling
No.
visits? Were they allowed to, make phone calls to each other, video chat?
It was left up to us, and I didn't mind if she talked to her siblings. We even got her a phone so she could do it.
What was CPS's position on that? Did they encourage you to keep their
They
relationship?
encouraged it, but they said for me to make sure that any phone calls that happened, that I was in the same room.
So you're supposed to monitor this abused child's conversation with her
Correct.
sibling. How did the child feel about that?
She hated it. She felt like I was invading her privacy, which I was.
Wow.
And then to her
Wow,
siblings, they felt the same way, because you're talking about a 15 and 16-year-old girls at that.
Wow, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy that they do that. So, did those children ever go home?
No, they're still in
or
foster care. One has aged out. And the girl that we had has now been in 4 different homes since us.
And she was 13 when
She
you had
was.
her. Do you know why she's been moved to so many homes?
She was removed from our home to go live with a relative. That didn't work out. So then she went to another home. I don't know what happened there, but she was removed. And then another home, and then something happened to where they said that she needed a higher level of care, so they moved her to a therapeutic home. Which, by the way, there's no therapeutic homes in our county.
In your opinion, did she need a therapeutic foster home?
No. The child needed love. The child needed to feel like she had a home. And she even locked herself in my bathroom whenever they told her that they were going to move her to her uncle, because she didn't want to go.
So if she did need therapeutic foster care, it was because of the trauma that was created by the foster care system.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
You spoke about a child that you adopted, that you have a relationship with that child's biological parents.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
So she's 20 years younger than me. So I'm kind of like mom to her, and I'm okay with that. I can tell her, hey, you need to straighten up. We have included her and the biological father at ball games. We have went out to dinner. We have talked on the phone. We met at Christmas, and they gave him Christmas presents. Right now, he's too young to understand who they are, because he's been with us for so long, and that they are okay with that. And we have had the conversation that at some point, whenever he's able to understand, that he'll understand who they are. But right now, he calls them by their name, and they're fine with that. And
so are they just friends of the family, according to him, or are they aunt and uncle? What is their position in his life, as far as he knows?
They're just a name. He just calls them by their first name. But there's not one event that I have included them in that they haven't shown up for. They were there for every ball game. Everyone. Supporting him every step of the way.
Wow. So what were the accusations against them to remove him from their care?
Child abuse is what
did it happen
against him? No. Against another? I don't know. It's like You know, we can say, they can tell us this all day long, that this parent has done this parent's done that, this parent's done this. I can sit down with somebody and see a different side of them, and see the good in them, and see the good parent in them. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with me seeing that in them? You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
it doesn't all have to be ugly. There's been times where
But
I've gone, God, I shouldn't have done that as a parent, or God, I was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my parents are the same
But
way.
you also had the ability to change and grow up and learn from your mistakes.
You do. I mean, you know, my parents look at me today and they say, God, things I got on you for was not worth it back then. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And now they're like, my kids can get away with murder with them, but it just, you have to look at things at the big picture and go, is it really worth it?
And you know, people, there's a reason that we have different stages in life, and we have different stages in brain development, because those things are what makes us who we are. I'm Pentecostal, and the pastor of my church, he was a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
He had a drug deal go bad. He was shot, and he lay dying when he found the Lord. And now he's the pastor of essentially a mini mega church. He's an amazing guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of the TV show Judge Joe Brown.
Yep.
Judge Joe Brown was in and out of juvenile hall. He actually was a criminal as an adult, yet he's now a judge. So how do we get to this point that we don't even allow people to learn from their mistakes? We just say we're not going to give you another chance, and we're going to destroy a child and traumatize a child because you made a mistake.
You know, it's like this. We have the youngest that we've adopted. She's not even 2 yet. Her parents had done some things drug wise, and they had done some time for it. And after she was adopted, I even took this child to the jail so she could meet her father, even though she doesn't know that that's who he is. But I wanted him to have the opportunity to see her. And I have a relationship now that if he wants to see her, he can contact me. And her biological grandfather sees her every other week. He comes to my house every other week to visit. You have to have that relationship from foster parent to biological parent, because if you don't, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be an ugly relationship. You're going to hate each other. You're going to feel like you're against each other. And that's not the way that this system should work. If we're truly supposed to be about reunification, then that's what we need to be about.
You were telling me about the little boy that you had adopted, and how you and his parents communicate. And CPS had asked you for some information. What information did they ask you for pertaining
They actually
to?
asked BioMom. They wanted her to send them screenshots of mine and her conversation, and that's been since he's been adopted. Well, he's mine. He's legally mine now. That's none of your business. He's no longer in foster care. You don't have a say-so of what I say to his mother.
Did CPS make any threats to her if she didn't turn that information over?
Oh no, they're still threatening, because she's still got one in care, and they're threatening now to terminate her rights of that one. So, I mean, we're fighting on her side, and she knows it.
Okay.
And you know, I talk to her every other day, maybe. I talked to her today, actually, and like I said, I'm like another mom to her, And I'm okay with that.
So these parents that you do have a relationship with, what, to your understanding, have they been told by CPS if they try to speak out about their case and bring awareness to what's going on?
The biological families or foster families?
Mhm. The biological families.
Oh, biological families, if you speak out, DSS will lie and say that you are doing stuff that you're not doing. They'll add things. For instance, the one little boy that we were just talking about, mom has done almost everything on her case plan, and they have got in court and lied and said that she's done none of it. None of it. And I know she has.
Yep.
I know she's still going to therapy, even after she signed over her son.
And what have they said to the fosters who attempt to speak out?
Oh, we better not. I have a foster friend that spoke out too much, and now she is sitting licensed with no children in her home because they have removed one from her home back in October and have not returned him yet. And he's the only thing that she's known.
So, Santa, I want to ask you about something that at the end of every one of my shows, one of the things that I do is I try to touch on parents' mental health, because this can be very traumatizing, not only to the children but to the parents. And as I told you, my best friend, back in October of 23, he took his life 2 days before his birthday. He took his life because CPS took his children. So one of the things that I like to try to ask my guests, and I like to try to hit on myself, is what do to help them get out of these situations where they might become it might become too much for them. But let me ask you this. What kind of resources are provided for you as a foster parent to deal with the trauma of being a foster parent or having a child taken away from you?
None. We have none. Now, I can say that some of the parents have rallied together, foster parents have rallied together and made a Facebook page where we can vent. But you have to be careful of that too, because if you vent and somebody screenshots it and sends it to DSS, you might as well have said it to their face. As far as biological parents, I can say this, and I'm a Baptist and I'm a Christian woman, and I believe everybody deserves a chance. I've had 9 back surgeries in my life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many situations that people don't understand that could have caused somebody, if it's drug wise, that could have caused somebody to get addicted, such as 9 back surgeries. You don't know what these people have gone through before. My mother grew up in foster care. You just don't know the situation. So don't judge somebody on what DSS and CPS is telling you. And as a biological parent, don't ever give up. Keep pushing. Keep doing more than what they tell you to do. And always keep proof of everything. It got to the point to where, as a foster parent, I didn't trust so much that I was putting my phone on record whenever a social worker came in my home.
Good. That's one of the things that we always recommend to parents, is to make sure that if you have any interaction with CPS, whether it's at your visit, whether it's them knocking on your door, always record every conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Everything will be recorded.
One thing that parents and some fosters don't realize is In some states, it's what's called a two-party consent, which means that both you and I have to know that it's being recorded and be okay with it. That there's an exception to that. There's actually two exceptions. One, if you're in your own home, nobody can tell you that you can or cannot record another person. The only thing you cannot do with another person without another person's consent in your home is to record in the bathroom. Any other area, you don't even have to let them know you're doing it. The second thing is, if a person is a government agent or representative of the government, as CPS alleges they are, they do not have to give consent. The government doesn't have the permission to ask for require consent. You are allowed, whether it's a cop, a CPS worker, a judge, you are allowed to record, period, because they are our employees.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, North Carolina
So
is not a two-party.
it's one party.
It's one party.
That's
And
good.
I can tell you that
The other thing is, if you're in public,
I can tell
Go
you
ahead.
that we got called into a meeting with some directors at DSS because they didn't like some of the things we were saying, and they actually took our phones from us.
so they stole from you.
They told us that we had to give them our phones for us to have that meeting.
That's not legal. That is so not legal. Now, let me ask you one other question. You said that there's a class action lawsuit against Davison County, North Carolina currently. Can you kind of give me just a little bit of a breakdown of what the lawsuit's
So the
about?
lawsuit has several counties involved. Davison County is one of them. And it is about how the whole system works as a whole and how children are removed and the reasons behind their removal and the process of the removal. And it's also pertaining to, like, if children have been moved several times, such as children that have been in my home. And it's about how permanency or reunification should be what is on the agenda. They shouldn't be in foster care for. Let me say this. I have a supervisor that emailed me and said, well, I've had a kid in a level 2 therapeutic home for 6 years. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. So, Santa, what do you do to keep sane? I mean, I know you've got little ones running around, and it's kind of hard to keep from going insane when you have other mouths climbing up in your lap and driving you nuts half the time. But I know there's times that you just go to your husband and break down, and you just can't deal with it. What do you do when you get in those situations that you can't deal with it anymore?
So my out is, so I sing, so I do that.
Okay.
I've started to write music, and then I also have a great family. So they are a huge support system with me. You always need to find something that will not make you think of the bad times, but encourage you in the good ones. Everybody has a bad day. I have them, and I am I stressed behind closed doors? Yeah. I have one biological daughter, 2 stepsons, and 4 kids that we've adopted. So we have 7 total. Am I going to pull my hair out some days? Yeah. But I'm also now going to school on top of that, because after being a foster mom and seeing the system, now I'm going to school to be a social worker, because I want to be what the other social workers that I've seen can't be.
Or
And
won't
that's a
be.
support system. Or refuse to be.
Okay, so let's touch on that. You're going to school to be a social worker. What kind of things do you see that you're being taught are not the way they should be taught? And from your perspective as a victim.
I've learned a lot in the last couple weeks, especially with me having a blog out there now that I've started, and people reaching out to me and giving me their stories. I've learned a lot of statutes that I didn't know. I even went and bought the Code of Ethics book for social workers and read it because I wanted to know what they can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And confidentiality is a big old thing in it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be that person that a biological family feels like that I'm working with them, not against them. And I feel like I haven't ever had that well, I take that back. I've had 2 social workers in the 2 years that we've done this. In many social workers, I've had 2 social workers that have been that. For the foster parent, I don't know how they were with the biologicals. But the rest of them, these are just a file on their desk. They're a number.
So let me ask you this. You've got my children.
Mm-hmm.
You've been told that I physically and sexually abused my children, that I'm a drug addict, that I've neglected my children, the whole gamut of just the worst things you could possibly think of. How do I approach you to be able to get you to understand that none of that's true?
Come at me as a parent to a parent. I know that we're not that kid's parents. We're just a foster parent. But in that moment that they're in our home, we're doing the best we can to fill that role that is missing, that was removed from DSS by DSS. Come to me and talk to me as a parent. I want to know your side. I want to know your story. And a lot of foster parents want to know. They want to hear the side of it. They want to see the sensitive side in you and the one that cares about your kid, not just one that shows up at the DSS building for their visitation and then turns around and walks out. We want to know you. And I think you want to know us.
When I send Christmas gifts or birthday gifts or clothes for school or a picture of me home with to your home with my children, what does CPS instruct you to do with those items?
I've been instructed different things by different social workers. So let me preface that. By some social workers, I've been told you can do whatever you want to with it. You can throw it in the trash. We don't care. By others, I've been told it's really up to you what you do with it. Have I ever thrown anything away that a parent has given me? No. I have pictures of my kids' parents up in their rooms now. Biological parents. Do I have pictures of us with the kids in their rooms? Yes, right next to them.
So have you ever had any of the social workers tell you to throw it away or to not let the kids have it?
Yes.
Or have you ever known about stuff being given to the children?
I have had the teenager that we had. She would come home with snacks and everything else and books and different things. I mean, it was just odds and end things. I don't care if she has them. If they're important to her, they're important to me.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big deal? Now, if a child has a mouthful of cavities and you're going and sending candy home with them every single time, am I going to give it to them every time? No.
Right.
But that's different.
Let's talk about that. You said that you had the child. I think it was the 13-year-old you talked about, that you had her and she had two older siblings in foster care. What kind of relationship was she allowed to have with her siblings?
The only time she saw her siblings was during the weekly visits with her mother. That was it.
And did CPS encourage you at all to help her and her siblings maintain a
No.
bond?
No. And I can tell you that the one that we have adopted, the little boy that we have adopted, he only sees his siblings once a month, and it's for an hour to 2 hours. And that is only until this last one is adopted, and then DSS is out.
So does he even understand who these children are that he's seeing?
Some of them, yes. So there's 5 of them. And there's some that don't even, so let me explain this. If a child has been adopted by a different home, once they're adopted, you're not required to take that child to a visit anymore.
Right.
I've still done it. I adopted my son in February of last year. I've still done these sibling visits once a month. They're heartbreaking, but I do them. Because he needs to know his family. He needs to know his siblings. He needs to know those siblings, and he needs to know these siblings in this house that are now his legal siblings. But he needs to know where he comes from.
Does CPS facilitate these visits after the child's adopted?
No. After the child is adopted, you no longer are required to do anything with any of them.
So they don't make it easy at all for the child to continue to maintain a relationship with their siblings who are also supposed to have been victimized by their
Correct.
biological parents. Wow. Have you ever asked any of these workers why they're okay with continuing to allow these children to be abused or abusing these children further?
As far as not facilitating sibling visits?
I mean, just as far as being okay with ripping the kids out of your house and not letting them maintain relationship with siblings, not having them in therapy immediately after they've been snatched out of their biological parents' homes.
We're told they're doing the best that they can do.
Let me ask you one other question. I've noticed in a lot of cases, I would say probably upwards of 90% or more, that the foster children, not adopted children, foster children are calling the foster parents mom and dad.
Yeah.
Does the CPS tell the foster parents to have the kids call them mom and dad? Why does that happen from your perspective?
Okay, so I've never heard them say that. I can say that I've had a child come in my home that stayed here maybe 2 or 3 months until she went back to her family. Mommy. And she was so young that she heard my adopted kids calling me mommy. And so whenever she called me that, I would correct her and go, well, and I even talked to biological mom about it. I said, look, this is what she's calling me, but this is how I'm going to correct it, is so that way my kids don't get confused and your kid doesn't either. She called me Mama S. And I never required, so I've had a social worker tell another friend of mine that I required my kids, all the kids that come in my home, to call me mom. No, I don't. The child that I'm trying to fight to get back called me Santa up until 2 months before she left my home. So you're talking 9 or 10 months of that she called me Santa, and then I became mom. and then she was ripped out of my home.
What did the CPS workers call you when they're talking to the foster children that are in your home?
See, that's the
Do
thing.
they say your
We
mom
don't know
is?
because they talk to them before they ever drop them off. And every time I've ever had a child dropped off at my home, the CPS workers not here more than 5 minutes.
What about like when they come out to visit the child, or when they come to pick them up for a visit? Do they said, this is your mother? Do they refer to you as their mother in front of them?
The ones I've dealt with have not. Now, are there some that probably have?
Okay.
Probably. It wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. Well, Santa, I would like to thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for speaking out and trying to clarify some of the things, because we as parents, we are made to hate you because their CPS is telling you that I've done these horrible things to my children, and they're trying to ostracize you from me. They're trying to isolate me so that I lose it and kill myself, and they don't have to worry about fighting me in court to get my kids back. They make me hate you because they on my end, they encourage my children to want to be with you instead of me.
Oh, I can see that.
So I think you've got a tremendously difficult situation. You're not just dealing with children who have been traumatized, whether they've been abused by their biological parents or not. They are abused from the moment that Child Protective Services rips them away from their children and from their parents. So you're dealing with these children who are completely traumatized. Oftentimes you have parents that have lost their mind because their children have been ripped out of their arms. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to function. Who does? And then you have these case workers. I was told the other day by a foster parent that the case workers treat him and his wife as if they're criminals.
Oh, absolutely.
And all they do is try to help them take care of the kids they steal. You've got a lot on your plate trying to maintain a relationship with the biological parents, so these kids have a little bit of sanity. I just say I'm thankful, and I'm thankful for other foster parents like you.
Thanks.
And I encourage you to continue to speak out and make sure that other foster parents that you know, let them understand what's really going on, because a lot of people really think that they're just taking children who have been abused by their parents. They really don't realize what kind of hell they're putting themselves into when they sign that contract to be a foster parent.
And I can tell you that I spoke at our commissioners meeting this past week and handed them 3 pages of anonymous foster parents' comments about DSS. And I guarantee out of 7 commissioners, probably maybe 2 read it.
Wow. So they don't even want to, the lawmakers and the people that have the ability to stop this don't even want to acknowledge that it's going on.
Oh no, we have a time limit that we get to speak, and I was quickly cut off at my time limit. He gave me 15 more seconds, and that was it.
Wow. So they don't want to listen to the parents that are being abused, supposed to be on the team of CPS. They also don't want to listen to them either. No. That's really crappy. That is really crappy. Well, Senna, I really appreciate you talking with us. To you back on, if you would like to talk again, that would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Keep me posted on what's going on with the case with your son's siblings, and any updates that you have on that class action lawsuit. That would be fantastic as well.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Senna. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye. Well, guys, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I knew a lot of that, but It's ridiculous what CPS is allowed to do to so many people. I mean, foster parents are supposed to be their friends, their buddies, they're people that, you know, they turn to house their kidnapped victims, and they're abusing them as well. What kind of narcissistic system is CPS that they abuse their victims' parents, and their jailers too, the people that are helping them be able to kidnap children? It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But guys, like I do every night, if you're having issues and you don't feel like you can go on, you think that this has just become too much for you, contact me. Contact Vinny, contact Spanny or Darren or Gunner or Brenda. We have so many people that are willing to talk to you. We would much rather be woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning with you crying and not knowing what to do in the middle of a panic attack than to have to put up a memorial page for you, have to tell the rest of our audience that, you know, we're sorry we lost so-and-so yesterday. We would rather listen to you cry, listen to you scream and cuss and whatever you need to do to get it out of your system than for us to have to go and tell your children the truth of what happened. That is your responsibility. That is one thing I never want to do. I'll do it if I have to, but I don't want to. I really don't want to. And you know, a lot of people say suicide is selfish, and I'll tell them fuck you, because my best friend committed suicide. And the one thing that I can say is I'm glad he did, because I know that he is no longer suffering. But damn, I really want to just slap the hell out of him, because now he's put me in a position that when his daughters are old enough, I have to tell them the truth. I have to be the one that goes and lets them know what really happened. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do it for him, and I don't want to have to do it for you. And neither do anybody else. Neither does anybody else on my team. Neither does anybody else that I work with. We don't want to do it. One of the things that I do is I'm very big into holistic medicine. Not marijuana. It's not legal in Alabama. It is in some states, and I'm not at all saying anything against it. If it's legal in your state and it works, do it. More power to you. But for the states where it's not legal, one of the things that I found, and this actually, after Chris killed himself, this is actually what saved my sanity. Honestly, I was so far gone. I don't know how I got out of it except for this. It's called GABA, G-A-B-A. You can get it Walmart, Walgreens, Target, Amazon. It's fantastic. It's great for anxiety. It's great for depression. It helps my ADD, helps me be able to focus. So, you know, maybe check that out if you feel like you can't go on, doesn't have any weird side effects. I don't have, I'm not zoned out. I don't feel like I'm going to pass out all day because of of sedative effects, anything like that. But guys, again, just if you need something, call me. You can find me on Facebook. Call me on Facebook Messenger. Call any of the other people on the show. We would love to be able to do whatever you need to be able to help you make it through another day. With that being said, thank you for watching Turn the Page with Kim Page. Have a good evening.
In a small town courthouse, shadows never lie. I'm standing tall with truth by my side. Families torn apart by secret sunset, but I'm turning the page, bringing light instead. Whispers in the night, they echo through the halls, from broken-hearted children behind those walls. I bring their voices To the door of justice met, swore I'd turn the page, not let